You want truth? You can't handle the truth.
Could you state your name for the court?
John Brown.
Mr. Brown, are you employed by the United States government?
Objection, Your Honor. This question in no way poses as a probe into possible criminality and is not a reference to matters in this case.
Objection overruled. Mr. Brown, if you would, answer the question.
No, I'm an independent contractor.
What is the name of your organization?
10 Legs.
Are you the sole proprietor of your company, and how many employees work for you?
I am the sole proprietor. No one works for me. I only use independent contractors.
Were you contracted by the U.S. government?
Yes.
Where was your contractual duties to take place?
Ukraine.
How do you find contractors? What criteria must they meet?
Objection, Your Honor. On relevance?
Sustained. Please reword your question or ask a new one.
You don't find contractors off the streets.
No.
How do you get contractors to sign on for a job?
I contact the person I believe best suits the assignment. After that, choice is theirs.
So you don't just get people off the street for these jobs. What type of background do they have?
I only contract retired servicemen, no active duty soldiers.
Who gives you contact information? You obviously are not advertising in the phone book.
I don't recall.
You can no longer recognize how you gather your contractors?
No.
How many people, including yourself, were contracted into this assignment?
5. I only use 4 other contractors to minimize liability.
Who were these 4 other men? Do you recall their names?
Thomas, Chuck, Randall, and Lewis.
What part of the Ukraine were you contracted to operate in?
Donetsk.
What were your contractual obligations?
Search, rescue, escort.
How many people did you find, rescue, and escort?
None.
How many contractors left Donetsk with you?
None.
In your own words, could you please describe to the court what happened, giving us clear, comprehensible reference to time and location?
Yes, I had boarded a private charter to Warsaw with my crew on March 13th around 1900. Flying out of Lexington, Kentucky, we arrived in Warsaw, 800 hours. On March 14th, there we picked up our transport vehicle, an M35 deuce and a half, fully loaded with supplies and weaponry. We were heading out to Lviv, heading southeast, down the E372 by noon. We had reached Lviv by 1700 March 14th. From here we refueled, had a drink at the local bar, and we're back on the road by 2000. After traveling another 4 hours, we made it to Uman, where we refueled. We alternated driver-passenger to keep traveling without stopping to rest. We had another 5 hours to travel before we made it to Donetsk. Arriving shortly after 0700 on March 15th, it didn't take long. We started receiving small arms fire from rooftops as we made our way into the city with our armored personnel carrier. The deuce and a half was taking its fair share of flak, but my men were not unnerved. We had an obligation to fill, and we were not leaving until the search and rescue was complete. We pushed into the heart of the city. The whole trip was a smooth ride until now. Our deuce and a half crawled along like a turtle. The mortar fire was dreadful. Shells seemed like they were just dialing us in. The truck becoming a larger target for bloodthirsty combatants, the closer to our goal we got. A tank rolls in front of us. Before I can react, the turret spins, facing Lewis, who is in the driver's seat. The projectile punches through the windshield, and Lewis is gone. Seemingly at the same moment, a mortar that must have been meant for us slams the tank, presumably killing everyone inside. Our M35 can no longer progress, and we're forced to abandon. Arming ourselves and taking what rations we don't want to leave the enemy, we say goodbye to Lewis and make our way to the center of town. It's almost eerie as the mortar shelling and small arms fire has all but stopped. The noises of explosions, more sporadic and less focused. No real targets to shoot at. Somehow in the mix of this all, we had become everyone's enemy, it appeared. We run into a high-rise complex.
There are no damn civilians here. What the fuck did you sign us up for, Brown?
Thomas shouted in anger. All of our intel suggests the blockades made it impossible for anything but military transport in and out. I know as much as you all know. This is not what I expected either, but we had to never rule out the unexpected, Thomas. I tried to reassure him. 1400. We begin the search of the complex for any civilians. The building is in horrible condition after surviving artillery bombardments. As we go from empty room to empty room, Thomas begins mumbling, cussing angrily and mad.
Chill out, man.
Chuck yells at Thomas. Thomas must have cracked at that moment. We are all at the top of the high-rise. He breaks from our formation and runs into the stairwell. Trying to keep our composure, Chuck, Randall, and myself let him go without a chase. We start heading down towards the basement, and gunfire erupts from below. We pick up our pace. We can hear people screaming, stop, and rush. Then, just that silence again. The basement level is black. We turn on our light attachments. Bodies and fresh blood. We had arrived too late. Thomas had become a monster, and he was about to seal his and Chuck's fate. We reach the boiler room. A shot rings out from the top of the boiler. We begin to light it up, directing our fire into Thomas, who had lied in wait to kill presumably anything that entered, and not just us. He managed to get one final kill before he was put down. Chuck had caught that single shot fired by Thomas through his eye. Must have been around 1700. Randall was a battle-hardened man who had completed both Ranger School and had become a Navy SEAL. A man that had fortitude and mettle. A decorated man who insists that we recover our fallen men's bodies and not leave them in that basement where they had met their tragic fate. I grabbed Thomas's corpse, and he grabbed Chuck. We started making our way back to the M35 to unite them with Lewis and try to pull out. The mission had become too compromised, as our losses were heavy and our morale was low. Randall agreed that all scopes of success had been diminished and retreat was our only option. 2100, we pull Lewis out of the driver's seat and load him into the back with the other two. Put the M35 in reverse and start an even slower trudge out. All the while, the behemoth must have attracted too much attention on the way in. The locals were making sure it couldn't get out. 2300, the IED explodes. The passenger side fuel tank gets the worst of it, and Randall is engulfed in flames. His screams, his face, his skin. He didn't die instantly. I managed to pull him out of the fire. He was in such bad shape. He wouldn't die, but he couldn't live like that. He was crying. He was screaming. I had to put him out of his misery. I was on foot. I had no one but myself now, and there was no option to fight. No way to search, and I was the only one now who now needed rescued. So I abandoned my gear, except for my compass and map. I began traveling west, back towards Yumen. March 16th, 0200. I was captured by Ukrainian forces. I didn't tell them my story, but instead that I was here visiting family in Donetsk. One day it was all normal, but now they're gone. The town is gone, and I'm all that is left. They gave me passage.
You killed an innocent man?
No, I euthanized a dying friend, damn it.
No more further questions, Your Honor.